I've always loved the Note series. The S Pen, the bigger display, and better battery life meant that I find myself coming back to the Note whenever I don't have a review device to daily drive. So when it came to the Note 10 Lite, I came in with high expectations. And after having used it for 2 weeks, here are my thoughts on it. Hey guys, Amurto here from C4eTech and welcome to my full review of the Note 10 Lite. Oh, and if you do end up enjoying this video, then please consider subscribing and turning on notifications by hitting that bell icon. So let's start things off with what to me is the most important part of a Note phone. The S Pen. We have it tucked right here in the bottom, and in hand it feels exactly like the one on the Note 10. Heck, it's even got Bluetooth, so we can use it as a remote shutter button for taking pictures. Now I went in expecting Samsung to cut a few corners, and there are some features missing here. For example, we don't get the gesture controls that was introduced with the Note 10, but honestly those features were kinda gimmicky and I never used them much anyway. But as a stylus to browse the web, jot some notes, or just capture a screenshot, the S Pen worked perfectly. In fact, this lockdown season, I found myself getting back into digital art, and the Note 10 Lite was the perfect phone to do it with. Of course, the S Pen with its pressure sensitivity and all that played a big part, but the large 6.7-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED screen deserves a mention as well. This is a Samsung panel after all, so we have the usual inky blacks and deep contrast levels. That being said, there are a few compromises here. Unlike the flagship S and Note series, we do not have the curved edges, so this is a flat AMOLED panel with a hole punch in the middle. Honestly though, that didn't stop me from binge watching an entire season of Altered Carbon on it. Samsung has done a great job of minimizing the bezels, and the overall viewing experience was really immersive. Now, I do have a few complaints here. First up, I would have really liked to see a stereo speaker setup. The bottom firing speaker can get loud, but it does lack a bit of richness and bass. And the second thing, I wish we had a higher refresh rate panel here. Now I understand cost cutting and all that, so the step down in resolution from Quad HD Plus to Full HD Plus isn't something that I'm gonna count as a con. But I really wish Samsung had found some way to include a 90Hz panel in the Note 10 Lite, especially since all the other phones in this range seem to sport that feature. So while the Note 10 Lite is a great media consumption device, I wouldn't really suggest it to someone who's looking for a flagship gaming experience. Now that's not just because of the lack of a high refresh rate screen, but also the internals that we have in here. The Exynos 9810 may be a flagship processor, but it is a couple of years old at this point. We saw it debut with the Galaxy S9, and to its credit, it has kept up pretty well. When it came to day-to-day tasks, the combination of Samsung's One UI and Exynos 9810 managed to impress. There was no visible lag or frame drops while navigating around the UI, apps opened up nice and quick, and thanks to the 6 gigs of RAM, I never came across any reloading issues either. We also have an 8 GB version of the Note 10 Lite. Both come with the same 128 GB of UFS 2.1 storage, and there's room for expansion as well thanks to the hybrid SIM slot in here. Now, while daily driving the Note 10 Lite was a buttery smooth experience, gaming on it at times felt a bit jittery. That's not to say that the Mali G72 MP18 inside cannot run intensive games. In fact, we tried out Call of Duty as well as PUBG, and both games ran well for the most part. It's just that there's this occasional frame drop here and there, something that I normally wouldn't complain about at all. But given that you are spending 40k on this device and that there is several Snapdragon 865 powered handsets in the same price range that deliver better gameplay, not to mention higher frame rates, I felt it was worth a mention. Moving on to battery life, now this is where I kind of have mixed feelings. The 4500 mAh battery inside the Note 10 Lite didn't disappoint. It's always lasted me through a single day, and the included 25-watt fast charger meant that I could go from 0 to 50 in just half an hour. That being said, at times I felt like the Note 10 Lite should have lasted me a little longer, especially while gaming. Now this may be because of the 10nm processor or the bigger, brighter AMOLED screen, but I've kinda gotten used to 4500 mAh batteries in phones lasting me at least 1.5 days. And on that front, the Note 10 Lite didn't always deliver. Now, one area where I have to give Samsung credit is that the Note 10 Lite, despite packing a 4500 mAh battery, manages to sneak in at just under the 200 gram mark. The overall footprint here is quite large too, which meant that most of the time I found myself using the phone with both hands. The metal sides feel sturdy, the buttons are nice and clicky, but the glass stick back, well, I'm not a big fan. It kind of feels like plastic and just doesn't give the premium feel that I've come to expect from curved glass backs. The finish though is certainly eye-catching. The Aura Glow design here is very similar to what we had seen on the Galaxy Note 10. One thing that's missing here though is an IP rating. Unlike other Samsung flagships, the Note 10 Lite doesn't come with any water or dust resistance. Speaking of flagships, the software here is pretty similar to what we would find in other Samsung flagships. We have One UI 2.0 on here, complete with all the bells and whistles. We have my personal favorite feature, Samsung Pay, a bevy of gesture support, and a tight integration with Windows 10 through the Link to Windows option. Personally, I really like the design choices Samsung has made with One UI. So overall, it was a great software experience, except for the fingerprint reader. Now we have an in-display optical scanner here, and while it wasn't as fast as the ones on a OnePlus or even a Realme X50 Pro, it had always been fairly consistent. However, a recent OTA update kind of messed it up, and now it works say 7 out of 10 times. So definitely not unusable, but kind of annoying. Fingers crossed, Samsung manages to fix this with a future update. Finally then, let's check out the optics. Now I really think that the Note 10 Lite has one of the most well-rounded cameras in this segment. Heck, the primary 12 megapixel camera, it's almost as good as the Note 10. We get punchy colors and a wide dynamic range. Details in the shadows are well preserved and there's no highlight clipping either. Pictures come out looking sharp. Zooming into this picture of the bike tire, we can see the dust and even the MRF logo. The wide f1.7 aperture means that we get a nice amount of background bokeh, like in this picture of the flower. Under low light, we have a dedicated night mode, and thanks to the presence of OIS, the Note 10 Lite can drop the shutter speed quite low. We have good details, colors are well preserved, like the green leaves on the tree, and while we do have some noise in the pictures, for the most part, the post-processing here is pretty good. Moving on to the ultra-wide, we have another 12 megapixel snapper here. Once more, we get crisp pictures with bright colors. It matches up to the primary snapper in most respects, but the dynamic range can be a bit lacking at times. And finally, we have a 2x telephoto camera. Again, this is a 12 megapixel snapper with an f2.4 lens and OIS. The detail levels are great, colors look vibrant. Honestly, there's not much to complain here. We have a great set of cameras on the Note 10 Lite. Even when it comes to portraits, Samsung gives us two choices. We can take live focus shots using the normal camera or more zoomed in ones with the telephoto lens. As far as the selfie camera goes, we have a 32 megapixel quad Berger camera that takes 8 megapixel photos by default. The pictures look a little soft but have great skin tones. And even while taking selfie portraits, we can see that the phone manages to expose the subject and the background properly. So great overall dynamic range. We can take full 32 megapixel selfies as well, but then the dynamic range takes a hit. As far as video capture goes, we can go up to 4K 60 FPS through the main shooter. The others are limited to 4K 30. In fact, stepping down the frame rate also gives us electronic video stabilization. After all, OIS is hardware level, so it's always on. Coming back to the footage, we have excellent sharpness, good dynamic range and colors that pop. We can also switch between sensors on the fly, and the color science is good enough that the transitions don't look jarring. We even have 1080p super steady video, captured by the wide-angle lens. It maintains decent detail levels despite the aggressive EIS, great for capturing footage while on the move. Overall, I'm really impressed with the cameras here. Samsung has given us a flagship level cameras complete with a fully kitted out Pro mode. Now if they could only stop switching to a cropped selfie camera mode every time I have to take a picture, I'd be really happy. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Note 10 Lite? Starting at 41,000 rupees, the Note 10 Lite brings some of Samsung's flagship features like great cameras, the S Pen, the signature AMOLED display to a much more affordable price point. However, the competition is tough and we have phones like the Realme X50 Pro that for 1K less offers a better processor, higher refresh rate screen, faster charging and a more premium build, not to mention 5G support. Even the OnePlus 8 is supposed to start at 42,000 rupees and it shares many of the same advantages that the X50 Pro does over the Note 10 Lite. So then who is the Note 10 Lite really for? Well, if you're someone who values the Samsung brand name, or you want the S Pen or Samsung exclusive features like Samsung Pay, then the Note 10 Lite brings you all that without breaking the bank. And that's why I think Samsung has done really well here. Now that's just been my 2 cents. Now I want to know what you guys think. Do you want to buy the Note 10 Lite, or has any of the other budget flagships caught your eye? Let us know in the comments below. That's it for this video. Like, share, subscribe and all that. And oh, hit the bell icon to get notified if you haven't yet. Thanks for sticking around till the end, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.